The shrill wail of a newborn echoed through the dusty Colorado town of Silverwater as Olivia Garner clutched her swollen belly, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face. The year was 1879, and the post office's weathered wooden post she leaned against seemed to be the only thing keeping her upright in a world that had come crashing down around her. Thunder rumbled in the distance as townsfolk hurried past, averting their eyes from the pregnant woman whose dress bore the unmistakable signs of a difficult journey. Her once fine blue calico was torn and stained, her auburn hair falling in tangled waves around her shoulders. At 22, Olivia had already seen more hardship than most faced in a lifetime. "Please," she whispered to a passing woman, who quickly shuffled away, clutching her shawl tighter. "I just need somewhere to rest." The whispers had already started. "Jezebel," some muttered. "Fallen woman," others said with scorn. In a town like Silverwater, a pregnant woman alone meant only one thing to most folks' shame. That's when he appeared, like he'd stepped straight out of the gathering storm clouds, tall and imposing against the darkening sky. His worn leather duster flapped in the wind as he approached, spurs jingling with each deliberate step. The man's face was partially hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, but when he lifted his eyes to meet hers, Olivia saw something unexpected kindness. "Madam," he said, voice low and steady as he took in her condition, the fear in her eyes, and the hostile stares from onlookers. "You look like you could use some help." A group of men had gathered near the saloon across the street, their leering faces and crude gestures making their intentions clear. One detached himself from the group, staggering slightly as he approached. "Hey there, pretty lady," the drunk called out. "I got a place you can stay. Might cost you, though." His laughter was joined by his companions. In one fluid motion, the stranger stepped between Olivia and the approaching man. His hand rested casually on the revolver at his hip, but his voice carried an unmistakable edge of steel. "No one will touch you again," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Then, more softly, for her ears alone, "Not while I draw breath." The drunk hesitated, weighing his chances against the steady-eyed stranger whose reputation had preceded him to Silverwater. "Ain't worth it," someone called from the saloon porch. "That's Vaughn Quinn, the reckoner." The name rippled through the gathering crowd. Even Olivia had heard whispers of the reckoner, a former lawman turned bounty hunter who'd earned his nickname through an uncanny ability to bring criminals to justice, one way or another. The drunk muttered something unintelligible before retreating to his companions, who suddenly found other places to be. Vaughn turned back to Olivia. His face was weathered by sun and wind, with a scar running along his jawline, but his eyes were the deepest blue she'd ever seen, and remarkably gentle for a man with his reputation. "My name's Vaughn Quinn. There's a doctor's office just down the street. Can you walk?" Olivia nodded, then winced as another pain gripped her. "I'm Olivia Garner, and I don't have money for a doctor." "Let me worry about that," he said, offering his arm for support. As they walked slowly down the muddy street, Olivia felt the curious and judgmental eyes following them. "Why are you helping me? You don't know me." Vaughn was silent for a moment before answering. "Let's just say I recognize someone running from something, or someone." The doctor's office was a small building, with a painted sign reading Dr. William Foster, physician and surgeon. The inside smelled of carbolic acid and herbs, a stark contrast to the earthy scent of the coming rain outside. Dr. Foster was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He took one look at Olivia and immediately directed Vaughn to help her to the examination room. "How far along are you, Mrs.?" the doctor asked. "Miss Garner? Almost 8 months, I think," Olivia replied, her voice small. Dr. Foster's examination was thorough but gentle. "You're exhausted and malnourished, Miss Garner, but the baby seems strong. I'd recommend bed rest for at least a week." Vaughn, who had waited in the adjacent room, spoke up. "She'll get it. What do we owe you, Doc?" Dr. Foster waved him off. "Consider it professional courtesy, Quinn. Just make sure she gets some proper food and rest." Outside, the rain had begun to fall in earnest. Vaughn helped Olivia into his wagon, covering her with an oilskin to keep her dry. "I have a cabin about 3 miles outside of town," he explained. "It's not much, but it's dry and safe. You can stay there until you're stronger." Olivia looked at him with suspicion. Why would you offer your home to a stranger? What do you want in return? Vaughn's expression didn't change as he clicked his tongue to set the horses in motion. Nothing? Contrary to what folks say about me, I don't make a habit of taking advantage of women in distress. The rain pelted down as they traveled in silence. Finally, Olivia spoke. My husband died 6 months ago. Mining accident in Denver. She placed a protective hand over her belly. His family blamed me for his death, said I bewitched him into marrying beneath his station. When they discovered I was with child, they said terrible things. Accused me of... She couldn't finish. Vaughn's jaw tightened. So you ran? I had to. They were going to take my baby once it was born. Said I wasn't fit to be a mother. The words tumbled out now, like a dam breaking. I've been traveling for weeks, town to town, taking odd jobs when I could. But the baby, I can't keep going like this. They crested a hill, and Vaughn's cabin came into view. It was indeed modest, a simple log structure with a stone chimney, nestled among pine trees with a small corral to one side. But to Olivia, it looked like salvation. You can stay as long as you need, Vaughn said as he helped her down from the wagon. I'm often away tracking bounties, so you'll have privacy. There's a room in the back that should suit you, and the little one when it arrives. Inside, the cabin was surprisingly neat and comfortable. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with a bearskin rug spread before it. The furnishings were simple but sturdy. A table with chairs, a bookshelf filled with books, and comfortable-looking armchair. Through a doorway, Olivia glimpsed a bed with a colorful quilt. That'll be your room, Vaughn said, following her gaze. I'll take the chair by the fire. I can't put you out of your bed, Olivia protested. You're not putting me out of anything. It's offered freely. He busied himself lighting the fire. There's stew left from yesterday. You should eat, then rest. That night, as rain drummed against the roof and wind whistled through the pines, Olivia lay in the unfamiliar bed, feeling something she hadn't experienced in months' safety. She wondered about the quiet man sleeping by the fire, this infamous reckoner whose eyes held such kindness beneath their steely exterior. Morning brought clear skies and the smell of coffee and frying bacon. Olivia emerged from the bedroom to find Vaughn at the stove, his back to her. Thought you might be hungry, he said without turning. Doc said you needed feeding up. Over breakfast, Vaughn explained that he needed to ride out for supplies and to check on a lead about a fugitive he was tracking. I'll be back by sundown. Make yourself at home. There's a shotgun above the door if you need it, though I doubt you will. After he left, Olivia explored the cabin more thoroughly. The bookshelf contained volumes of law books, history, and, surprisingly, poetry. On a small table near the window sat a photograph in a tarnished silver frame, a woman with a serious expression and a young boy, perhaps 10 years old, standing stiffly beside her. The resemblance between the boy and Vaughn was unmistakable. Olivia ran her fingers along the spines of the books, wondering about the man who read both Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England and Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. Vaughn Quinn was clearly more than the dangerous bounty hunter people whispered about. True to his word, Vaughn returned as the sun was setting, his saddlebags full of supplies. Along with food and basic necessities, he'd brought something unexpected, a wooden cradle, disassembled and wrapped carefully in burlap. Found it at the general store, he explained awkwardly when Olivia's eyes welled with tears. Thought you might need it. Baby's coming soon enough. You didn't have to do that, she said softly. Vaughn shrugged, clearly uncomfortable with her gratitude. Needs a bit of work still. I'll put it together tomorrow. Days passed in a strange but comfortable rhythm. Vaughn spent mornings hunting or working around the property, then would often disappear for hours tracking leads on bounties. Olivia, growing stronger with proper food and rest, began to feel useful again. She cooked, mended Vaughn's shirts, and even planted a small vegetable garden behind the cabin. They rarely spoke of personal matters, yet a quiet understanding grew between them. Vaughn never pressed Olivia about her past beyond what she'd already shared, and she respected his privacy in return, though curiosity about the mysterious bounty hunter often kept her awake at night. One evening, nearly 2 weeks after Olivia's arrival, Vaughn returned from town with news. "Telegraph came in today," he said, as they sat by the fire after dinner. "Man named Preston Garner has been asking about a missing daughter-in-law in towns along the stagecoach routes. offering a reward for information. Olivia's hand flew to her throat. My father-in-law. He's looking for me. Seems so. Says he's concerned for your welfare and that of his grandchild. Vaughn studied her face carefully. That the truth of it? No, Olivia whispered. He wants the baby, not me. The Garners are wealthy, influential in Denver society. They need an heir, and my child is all that's left of their son. Her voice strengthened with resolve. But they'll never accept me. Preston told me himself the baby would be raised as a proper Garner, and I would be paid to disappear. Vaughn nodded slowly. I figured it might be something like that. Don't worry, no one in town knows who you are yet. And I didn't enlighten them. Olivia's relief was palpable, but short-lived. He won't stop looking. Once the baby comes, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Vaughn said firmly. For now, you're safe here. That night brought a violent thunderstorm. Olivia was awakened by a particularly loud crash of thunder, followed by the sound of breaking glass. She found Vaughn in the main room, cleaning up the remains of the silver-framed photograph that had fallen from its place. I'm sorry if I startled you, he said, carefully retrieving the photograph from among the broken glass. Was that your mother, in the picture? Olivia asked softly. Vaughn was silent for so long that she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he nodded. My mother and me, taken about a year before she died. I'm sorry, Olivia said, truly meaning it. And your father? Never knew him. He abandoned us before I was born. Vaughn's voice was matter-of-fact, without self-pity. My mother worked herself to death trying to provide for us. After she was gone, I was on my own at 13. That's why you became a lawman? She guessed. A shadow crossed Vaughn's face. I became a lot of things before I pinned on a badge, not all of them honorable. He carefully placed the photograph on the table. You should get back to sleep. Storm's moving away now. But Olivia didn't move. The townsfolk called you the Reckoner. What does that mean? Vaughn's blue eyes met hers. It means I've developed a reputation for bringing certain types of men to justice when the law can't or won't reach them. Men who hurt the vulnerable. Who think their money or power puts them beyond consequences. The tension in the room was palpable, charged with unspoken thoughts and feelings. Thunder rumbled in the distance and rain pattered against the windows. Thank you, Olivia said simply, for everything. Something in Vaughn's expression softened. For a moment it seemed he might say more, but instead he merely nodded. Good night, Olivia. The days grew warmer as June rolled into July. Olivia's time was approaching, and both she and Vaughn knew it. The cradle stood ready in the corner of her room, and Vaughn had ridden to fetch Dr. Foster twice when Olivia experienced false labor pains. On a particularly hot afternoon, Vaughn was teaching Olivia how to shoot the shotgun, just in case, he insisted when riders appeared on the ridge above the cabin. 4 men, moving with purpose. Get inside, Vaughn ordered, his hand dropping to his revolver. Olivia hesitated, fear clutching at her heart. Is it them? The Garners? Don't know yet, but I'm not taking chances. Go. From the window, Olivia watched as Vaughn stepped onto the porch, one hand resting casually on his holstered gun as the riders approached. She recognized the lead rider immediately, Marshall Garner, her late husband's older brother. Beside him rode a man she didn't know, and behind them, 2 rough-looking men who were clearly hired guns. That's far enough, Vaughn called when they were still a good distance away. Marshall reined in his horse, studying Vaughn with obvious disdain. We're looking for Olivia Garner. We have information she's been seen in these parts. Don't know anyone by that name, Vaughn replied evenly. The stranger beside Marshall spoke up. I'm Sheriff Tate from Denver. We have reason to believe Mrs. Garner is in danger and may not be of sound mind. Her father-in-law is concerned for her welfare and that of her unborn child. As I said, I don't know the lady, Vaughn repeated, but I do know you're out of your jurisdiction, Sheriff. Marshall Garner's face flushed with anger. Look here, bounty hunter. We know she's with you. The storekeeper in town described her perfectly. She's carrying my brother's child, and that baby is a Garner. It belongs with family, not some... He looked Vaughn up and down contemptuously. Hired gun with blood on his hands. I suggest you leave my property, Vaughn said, his voice deceptively calm. Now. One of the hired guns nudged his horse forward. "You're outnumbered, Quinn." Vaughn didn't move, but something in his stance changed a subtle shift that Olivia, watching from the window, could feel rather than see. It was like watching a mountain lion prepare to pounce. "Last warning," Vaughn said. "Right away." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Marshall spat on the ground. "This isn't over. That baby is coming with us one way or another." He yanked his horse around. "We'll be in town, waiting. She can't hide forever." Olivia was trembling when Vaughn came back inside. "They know I'm here." "They suspect, but they're not certain," Vaughn corrected. "And they won't try anything here, not yet anyway. But they'll wait us out." "What are we going to do?" Olivia asked, unconsciously placing her hands protectively over her belly. Vaughn's face was grim as he checked his revolver. "For now, we stay put. I'll ride into town tomorrow, see what they're up to." That night, unable to sleep, Olivia found Vaughn sitting on the porch, staring into the darkness. She eased herself onto the bench beside him. "You should be resting," he said without looking at her. "I can't sleep." She sighed, looking up at the star-filled sky. "Vaughn, I need to ask you something. Why are you doing all this? Protecting me, risking conflict with the Garners? It's more than just helping someone in need." Vaughn was silent for so long that Olivia thought he might not answer. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "My mother was like you alone, vulnerable, with a child. No one stood up for her. No one protected her from men who thought they could take what they wanted." He turned to look at Olivia then, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "I've spent my life tracking men who prey on others. Your father-in-law, for all his fine clothes and social standing, is no different from the outlaws I hunt. He thinks his money gives him the right to take your child, to dictate your life." "Thank you," Olivia said softly. Then, emboldened by the darkness and the intimacy of the moment, she asked, "What happened to make you leave the law? To become the bounty hunter they call the Reckoner?" Vaughn's jaw tightened. "I was a deputy marshal in Wyoming Territory, tracked a man who'd murdered 3 women. When I brought him in, the judge who happened to be his uncle dismissed the charges, said there wasn't enough evidence." His voice hardened. 2 weeks later, that man killed again, a young mother and her infant daughter. He stood abruptly, pacing the small porch. "I found him. And I made sure justice was served, badge or no badge." He stopped, looking out into the darkness. "I turned in my star the next day and started hunting men the law couldn't or wouldn't touch." Olivia reached out, touching his arm gently. "You're a good man, Vaughn Quinn." He looked down at her hand on his arm, then at her face. Something passed between them, an unspoken connection, a recognition. "You should get some rest," he said softly. The next morning, Vaughn prepared to ride into town. "Stay inside, keep the shotgun handy," he instructed. "I'm just going to find out what they're planning, maybe talk to the sheriff." "Be careful," Olivia said, surprising both of them by reaching up to straighten his collar. Her fingers lingered for a moment, and their eyes met. Vaughn nodded, something unreadable in his expression, then turned and mounted his horse. Hours passed slowly for Olivia. She tried to keep busy, kneading bread and reorganizing the baby clothes she'd managed to sew from Vaughn's old shirts. By mid-afternoon, worry had taken firm hold. Vaughn should have been back by now. As the sun began to set, Olivia heard hoofbeats approaching. Relief flooded through her until she realized there was more than one rider. She grabbed the shotgun and positioned herself by the window. It was Vaughn, but he wasn't alone. Dr. Foster rode beside him, and behind them came a wagon driven by a woman Olivia didn't recognize. Vaughn dismounted quickly and came to the door. "It's all right," he assured her as she lowered the shotgun. "This is Mrs. Porter, the midwife, and you remember Dr. Foster." "What's happening?" Olivia asked, confused. "The Garners have the sheriff in their pocket," Vaughn explained tersely. "They're claiming you're mentally unstable, that you ran away with their grandchild while not in your right mind. They're getting paperwork drawn up to take custody of the baby once it's born." Fear clutched at Olivia's heart. "They can't do that." "They can try," Vaughn said grimly, "but we're not giving them the chance. We're leaving tonight." Dr. Foster stepped forward. "I wanted to check you over before you travel, Miss Garner. A journey in your condition isn't ideal, but it's safer than staying here," Vaughn finished. "I know a place in the mountains, an old friend's cabin. The Garners won't find us there." Mrs. Porter, a stout woman with kind eyes, nodded in agreement. "I've brought supplies for the birth. I'll be coming with you, dear." "That baby won't wait much longer, from the looks of you." While Dr. Foster examined Olivia and pronounced her fit to travel, Vaughn and Mrs. Porter loaded the wagon with supplies. Within 2 hours, as darkness fell, they were ready to leave. "It's about 20 miles, Vaughn explained as he helped Olivia into the wagon. "We'll travel through the night, be there by morning." The journey was difficult. The trail grew steeper and rougher as they climbed into the mountains, and every jolt sent waves of discomfort through Olivia's body. Vaughn rode ahead, constantly alert for signs of pursuit, while Mrs. Porter did her best to make Olivia comfortable in the wagon. Dawn was breaking when they reached the cabin, smaller than Vaughn's, but well-built and hidden among tall pines. A stream gurgled nearby, and the air was cool and clean. "My friend Jacob built this place years ago," Vaughn explained as he helped Olivia inside. "He's trapping up north now, said we could use it as long as needed." They had barely settled in when Olivia felt the first real contraction, stronger than anything she'd experienced before. Her sharp intake of breath brought Mrs. Porter to her side immediately. "The baby's coming," the midwife confirmed after a quick examination. The journey must have hastened things along. Vaughn's face paled slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "What do you need?" "Hot water, clean linens, and privacy," Mrs. Porter replied briskly. "And you'd best wait outside, Mr. Quinn. This is women's business now." The hours that followed were a blur of pain and effort for Olivia. Mrs. Porter was a calming presence, her experienced hands and soothing voice guiding Olivia through the labor. Outside, Vaughn paced restlessly, jumping at every cry that escaped from within the cabin. As the sun began to set, a different cry pierced the mountain air, the wail of a newborn taking its first breath. Vaughn froze in his tracks, listening to the strong, healthy cries. Mrs. Porter appeared at the door, her face wreathed in smiles. "Come meet your daughter, Miss Garner," she called inside. Then to Vaughn, "You too, Mr. Quinn. It's a fine, healthy girl." Inside, Olivia sat propped up in bed, her face exhausted but radiant as she cradled a small bundle wrapped in one of Vaughn's old shirts. She looked up as Vaughn entered, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "She's perfect," Olivia whispered. Vaughn approached cautiously, as if afraid his presence might somehow disturb the miraculous scene before him. When Olivia tilted the bundle to give him a better view, he felt something shift inside him, a protective instinct stronger than anything he'd ever known. The baby was tiny, with a cap of dark hair and a rosebud mouth. As he watched, she opened her eyes dark blue, like all newborns, but with a clarity and intensity that seemed to look right through him. "Would you like to hold her?" Olivia asked softly. Vaughn hesitated, then carefully took the bundle in his arms. The baby fit perfectly, her tiny weight settling against his chest as if she belonged there. An unfamiliar emotion welled up in him, tenderness mixed with fierce protectiveness. "She needs a name," Olivia said. Vaughn looked from the baby to her mother. "What did you have in mind?" "I was thinking Hope." Olivia's eyes met his. "Because that's what you gave us both." That night, as mother and daughter slept peacefully, Vaughn kept watch by the window. The mountain night was quiet, with only the occasional hoot of an owl or rustle of wind through the pines. He thought about the tiny life that had come into the world, and the woman who had shown such courage in protecting her child. He thought, too, about the Garners and their determination to take what wasn't theirs, his jaw set in resolution. They would have to go through him first. 3 days passed in peaceful seclusion. Little Hope thrived, and Olivia regained her strength quickly under Mrs. Porter's care. Vaughn made daily circuits of the surrounding area, watching for signs of pursuit, but none came. On the 4th day, as Olivia sat nursing Hope on the small porch, Vaughn returned from his patrol with news. "Rider coming up the valley," he said tersely. "Just one, moving slow. Could be a hunter, but we can't take chances." He ushered Olivia and the baby inside, then positioned himself by the window with his rifle. An hour later, a lone horseman appeared on the trail below the cabin. "It's Dr. Foster," Vaughn said with relief, lowering his rifle. The doctor brought troubling news. "The Garners have got a court order," he explained over coffee at the rough-hewn table. "They're claiming Olivia is mentally unfit, that she stole away the Garner heir. They've hired men to search the mountains. Olivia clutched Hope closer. They can't take her. I won't let them. There's more, Dr. Foster continued. I did some asking around in Denver. Seems Marshall Garner has gambling debts, substantial ones. The family fortune isn't what it used to be, but with control of his brother's child, he'd have access to the trust funds set up in the baby's name. Vaughn's expression darkened. So, it's about money. It always is. What can we do? Olivia asked, fear evident in her voice. Vaughn was silent for a moment, thinking. Then, we fight them, legally. How? Olivia asked. They have money, influence. I'm just a seamstress's daughter who married above her station. You're also the mother of James Garner's legitimate child, Dr. Foster pointed out. And I knew your husband, Mrs. Garner. He would never have wanted his child taken from you. I have a friend, Vaughn said slowly. A judge in Denver, honest man. If we can get to him, present your case. Bring evidence of the Garners' financial motives. Hope began to fuss, and Olivia gently rocked her. It would mean going back to Denver, facing them on their territory. Yes, Vaughn admitted, but running forever is no life for you, or Hope. That night, after Mrs. Porter and Dr. Foster had retired to rest before their journey back to town, Olivia found Vaughn sitting by the fire, lost in thought. You've been quiet, she said, sitting beside him after ensuring Hope was sleeping soundly. Vaughn stirred from his reverie. Just thinking about our next move. Our next move, Olivia repeated softly. You keep saying our and we. This isn't your fight, Vaughn. You've already done more than anyone could ask. He turned to look at her, his blue eyes intense in the firelight. It became my fight the moment you cried at that post in Silverwater. Olivia studied his face, the strong lines, the scar along his jaw, the eyes that had seen so much hardship, yet still held such kindness. Why? She whispered. Why did you really help me that day? Vaughn was silent for a long moment. Because I recognized something in you, he finally said. Courage, determination, a willingness to do whatever it took to protect your child. His voice softened. And because, for the first time in years, I wanted to be more than the reckoner. I wanted to be a man who helps, not just one who hunts. Olivia reached out, placing her hand over his. You are that man, Vaughn Quinn. Their eyes met, and something shifted between them, the unspoken attraction that had been building over weeks finally acknowledged. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Vaughn leaned forward. Their kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with surprising intensity. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. I've wanted to do that for weeks, Vaughn admitted, his voice husky. Olivia's smile was radiant. So have I. Morning brought clarity and resolve. They would travel to Denver, but not alone. Dr. Foster would go ahead to arrange a meeting with Judge Howard, Vaughn's friend. Mrs. Porter insisted on accompanying them to care for Hope during the journey, and Vaughn sent telegrams to former colleagues lawmen who owed him favors and would stand as witnesses to Olivia's character. The journey to Denver took 5 days, traveling carefully to ensure Hope's comfort and safety. They stayed at small inns under assumed names, ever watchful for signs of the Garners' hired men. Denver had grown since Olivia had fled months earlier. The city bustled with activity, new buildings rising, streets teeming with people seeking their fortunes in the boomtown. The Garner mansion stood on a hill overlooking the city, a symbol of old money and influence. Judge Howard met them at a small hotel on the outskirts of town. He was older than Vaughn, with shrewd eyes and a reputation for fairness that had earned him both respect and enemies. This won't be easy, he warned after hearing their story. The Garners have influence, but if what you say about Marshall's financial motives is true, and with witnesses to corroborate Olivia's sound mind and maternal fitness, he nodded thoughtfully. We have a chance. The hearing was set for 3 days later. In the meantime, they prepared their case meticulously. Dr. Foster provided medical testimony about Olivia's mental and physical health. A banker friend of Judge Howard's investigated the Garner finances, finding evidence of Marshall's debts, and 3 former deputies who had served with Vaughn arrived to stand as character witnesses. On the morning of the hearing, as Olivia, dressed in her finest clothes, hastily purchased the day before, Vaughn approached her with something in his hand. I want you to have this, he said, holding out a small silver locket. It was my mother's, the only thing of value she ever owned. Olivia took it with trembling hands. Inside was a tiny portrait, the same woman from the photograph in Vaughn's cabin. Vaughn, I can't accept this. Please, he said softly. For luck. His eyes held hers. Whatever happens today, I want you to know, these past weeks have meant more to me than all the years that came before. Olivia reached up to touch his face, her heart full. And to me. The courthouse was packed when they arrived. The Garners sat at the front, Preston and Marshall flanked by expensive lawyers. Their faces showed shock when Olivia entered with Hope in her arms, Vaughn at her side. Judge Howard presided with quiet authority. The Garners' lawyer presented their case, first painting Olivia as an unstable woman who had fled with their heir, endangering the child's welfare. When Olivia's turn came, she handed Hope to Mrs. Porter and took the stand. With quiet dignity, she told her story, her love for James, his death, the threats from his family, her desperate flight to protect her unborn child. The Garners never accepted me, she concluded, her voice steady despite her nerves. They made it clear that they wanted James's child, but not its mother. They threatened to declare me unfit, to take my baby from my arms. She looked directly at Preston Garner. I fled not because I was unstable, but because I was a mother protecting her child. The evidence mounted testimonials to Olivia's character, documentation of Marshall's gambling debts, even a letter from James Garner's personal physician stating that James had expressed concerns about his family's treatment of his wife before his death. Through it all, Vaughn sat stoically supportive, his eyes never leaving Olivia. When called to testify, he spoke with the straightforward honesty that had made him respected even by those who feared the reckoner. I've spent my life judging the character of others, he told the court. I've never met a woman with more courage, more integrity, or more love for her child than Olivia Garner. After hours of testimony, Judge Howard retired to consider his decision. The wait was agonizing. Olivia paced the small anteroom, Hope sleeping peacefully in her arms, while Vaughn watched silently from the window. When they were called back, the courtroom was hushed with anticipation. Judge Howard's face gave nothing away as he took his seat. This court has considered the evidence and testimonies presented today, he began formally. The question before us is not just legal guardianship, but what truly serves the best interests of the child. He looked at the Garners, then at Olivia. It is the finding of this court that Hope Garner's best interests are served by remaining in the custody of her natural mother. Olivia Garner. Relief swept through Olivia like a physical force. She swayed slightly, and Vaughn was instantly at her side, supporting her. Furthermore, Judge Howard continued, this court grants Olivia Garner full legal guardianship and control of any trusts or inheritance due to her daughter from the estate of James Garner. The Garners will have reasonable visitation rights to be arranged through this court. Preston Garner's face was thunderous as he rose to leave. He paused beside Olivia. This isn't over, he said coldly. Vaughn stepped forward, his voice quiet but carrying. Yes, it is. Your granddaughter will know her family if you choose to be family to her, but no one will ever touch Olivia or Hope again. Not while I draw breath. Something in his tone, or perhaps in the reputation that preceded him, made Preston Garner take a step back. After a moment, he nodded stiffly and left, Marshall trailing behind. Outside the courthouse, in the warm Denver sunshine, Olivia turned to Vaughn, her eyes shining with tears of joy and relief. We did it, she whispered. We're free. Vaughn smiled, a rare, full smile that transformed his weathered face. Yes, you are. Free to build whatever life you choose. Olivia shifted Hope to one arm and reached for his hand. Whatever life I choose, she repeated softly. And if that life included a certain former lawman, a man who kept his promise that no one would touch me again? Vaughn's eyes widened slightly, then softened. Are you sure? My life hasn't been an easy one. I'm not the kind of man most women would choose. I'm not most women, Olivia said simply. And Hope and I aren't looking for an easy life. We're looking for a good one, with a good man. She squeezed his hand. A man who already loves this baby as if she were his own. Vaughn looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms, then back at Olivia. Slowly, he reached out to touch the silver locket around her neck. "My mother would have liked you," he said softly. Then, with a tenderness that belied his fearsome reputation, he bent to kiss first Hope's forehead, then Olivia's lips. In that moment, under the Colorado sun, the man they called the Reckoner found something he'd never expected a family of his own. 2 years later, the cabin outside Silverwater had grown. A new room had been added, the vegetable garden had expanded, and a small corral held not just Vaughn's horse, but a gentle mare for Olivia and a tiny pony for Hope. Vaughn Quinn still rode out occasionally when particularly dangerous fugitives needed capturing, but more often he was found at home, teaching Hope to ride or reading to her from the poetry books he'd once kept private. The feared bounty hunter had become something else, a husband, a father, a man at peace with his past. Olivia, watching from the porch as Vaughn lifted Hope onto the pony's back, her delighted giggles filling the air, felt the baby within her stir. Another child would join their family by winter. A son, she suspected, though she hadn't told Vaughn yet. The Garners, true to Judge Howard's ruling, visited twice a year. The relationship remained formal but cordial, with Preston Garner gradually warming to his role as grandfather. The old man had even set up a college fund for Hope, and any siblings that might come along, he'd added with a knowing look at Olivia's midsection during his last visit. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, Vaughn returned to the porch, Hope on his shoulders. He set her down carefully, and she ran inside to find her favorite doll. "Happy?" he asked, sitting beside Olivia and placing his hand gently on her growing belly. Olivia leaned into him, feeling the solid strength that had become her anchor. "Completely," she said, then added with a smile, "though I hope you're ready for another little one to protect. I think this one might be a boy." Vaughn's eyes widened, then crinkled with joy. He pulled her close, his kiss a promise of all the years to come. "No one will ever touch any of you," he whispered against her hair, "not while I draw breath." And Olivia believed him just as she had the first day at the Silverwater post, when a crying, pregnant woman had found not just protection, but a love strong enough to last a lifetime.